Thanks for tuning in to the episode of The Aydin Show, sponsored by our friends at Casa Homes. Enjoy the show. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to The Aydin Show, where we are dedicated to shed light, wisdom, and knowledge to our youth and communities. And today's guest is Mustafa Koken. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Mustafa, you just recently went to Hajj. Tell us a little bit about what that experience was like.
Yeah, I went last year to Hajj. It's a very good experience. The only thing is it's very hard to explain what Hajj experience is like. I think you have to see it with your own eyes. We had such a good time there. Went with my wife. And I went with my brother and my sister-in-law as well. So it was the four of us all the time hanging around. But I think you have to see it with your own eyes. I think everyone says the same thing. You need to see and experience. It's not something you can just explain in words. I remember the first time I went over there, the first night that we got there, we didn't go to sleep. We'd left Melbourne. We've gone all the way there. And then the Imam is saying, we're just about to enter, the gate and see Kaaba for the first time. When you see it, it's really amazing because it actually looks quite large when you first see it from the entrance.
Mm.
But then when you go in, it's a lot smaller. But you feel at home when you go there. You feel like you don't want to leave. And that's how it was for we were there for 3 weeks there, and then we went to Medina, but you feel like you don't want to leave all the time. You feel safe there, you feel, comfortable.
Yeah, you went with Diane at 2019, so you went just very recently. I went in 2018 with Miligurish. I guess the experience when you walk into those doors and you see for the first time, it does really hit you. It hits some people more than others. Like I saw a lot of people just around me just crying and, just amazed. Yeah. I think when it hit me really hard, it wasn't when I first saw it. I was amazed and I loved that moment of it. But it was more when I was praying right in front of it and I was watching, like you're directly in front of the Kaaba and your eyes are on the Kaaba as you're praying, and I got very emotional there. That was just out of the world experience. It was really good.
I have a lot of videos of that.
You do?
You're talking about, yeah. So it was my favorite pastime. It was basically do the tawaf, do the prayer, and literally we used to just sit there and watch people walk past. But like you said, when you're praying, even to this day, like even now when I try to pray, I sort of imagine myself as if I'm still in front of Kaaba itself.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, it's probably the most amazing feeling that you're actually there.
Definitely.
It's like this is the place that we've been praying to all this time. It's right here. It's right in front of me.
Exactly. Nothing like it.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah. Let's touch base a little bit about what you do for work.
Yeah, I work for Telstra. I'm into IT, been all my life basically. I travel quite a bit for my work. Used to do a lot of interstate travel, but now more in Victoria, but all networking. I don't deal with phones or anything, but it's IT, purely
You're
IT.
You're lucky you don't deal with phones. I was in the mobile phone industry. Look, I loved it. I was in it for about early on when the 5110s came out and, those really big bricks, and then you had the 30. They were exciting. So you had the 3210s come out, and then you had the 80, how I remember it, 8210, 8250 and 8310. And the difference between them, the 8250 had a blue LCD and the 8310 had a white LCD with an FM radio. So every time something new came out, it was just like people come to, this new phone's got the radio. I want to upgrade, but now...
I can't even remember which models I had, but I had the one with the radio. I love that.
Yeah. One of my favourites was a Philips phone. It was called the Philips Xenium. The battery life on that was 2 weeks. And that's what made it, that's what was pretty cool about that. But you look at the mobile phones now, the iPhones, I mean, it's amazing that the technology in a phone. However, I wouldn't want to sell them because it's just really repetitive. It's the same thing, the iPhone 10 to the 11 to the 12, the camera difference, so nothing exciting there. But
it's got 50 megapixel now.
Yeah, exactly.
What does anyone do with it? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Samsung's got like 100 megapixel or something now.
Yeah, I think the new one, Samsung, the 12 or something that's about to come out, I think that's got that 100 megapixel.
It's 105 or something. It's like ridiculous,
Yeah. Early on in life, what was your involvement in the communities? Which mosque did you attend to?
Early on, so when I was young, we used to go to Coburg Mosque, which is probably where most people all went to. There were no other mosques, only Turkish ones anyway, at least when I was growing up. So the first few years went past there. That's where I got a lot of the knowledge in my early life. I was 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But then later on, we moved on to Broadmeadows. So Broadmeadows was starting. There was no mosque there, but there was a committee, and they were running classes there for the first few years around like at Upfield High School. So I went there for many years.
What's that experience like in Broadmeadows?
It was a lot different because I was a lot younger at Coburg. I was only 7 years old, and it was a very big class. And like it was I think it was about a couple hundred people, possibly in the one class.
Wow.
The girls so it was the girls sat on one side, guys sat on the other. So a lot of the people that from those days, they're everywhere right now.
So people that were at Coburg Mosque are pretty much in all these other mosques.
All these people that are like Milli Gurdish Mosque and things like that, some of the people that are running it or have huge involvement, they're all from those old days, Everyone came out of Coburg. So there was a big impact of the people that came out of there, I think.
I think I agree with you because I was about 6 years old when I was at Coburg, and I remember climbing the apricot trees at the front. I don't know if they're there now. I don't think they are, but I used to climb them up at 6 years old and, when it was season and eat all the apricots and leave none for anyone else. But my father was one of those guys that went there, my grandfather, and then he decided, I think they opened Milligurish and he went towards that direction, Yeah.
But I think everyone came out of there. But there was the only one. But then, went to Broadmeadows, and I was so in Broadmeadows, I was in high school now. So it was a very different sort of experience.
Which high school did you go back then?
I went to Faulkner, and then I went to Gladstone Park.
Wow, so they were around, what year is this?
So 81, 82, I was at Faulkner High School.
Okay.
And then after that, it was all Gladstone Park.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Was Uppy around those times? Because if you went to Broadmeadows, if you were part of that mosque.
I didn't live around it, so I lived in Gladstone Park. So we lived in Camberfield and then Gladstone Park. So because anyone lived in Camberfield, which is the other side of Camberfield, you used to go by bus to Faulkner. It was a common thing because Camberfield didn't have its own high school.
Okay.
And then when we moved to Gladstone Park, I went to Gladstone Park High.
Because it's close, obviously,
It's closer. But Upfield was there. I had a lot of friends that were in Upfield, and our religious classes were in Upfield High School in the portables.
The Broadmeadows Mosque?
Yeah, so before the Broadmeadows Mosque had the mosque, they bought the land. The land was actually there. I think they bought it in 81, around that stage. But they organised Upfield High School to use their mosque, the portables. Mm-hmm. And I think there was only 2 rooms there anyway.
Yep.
There was like a beginners, and then there was a mixed one sort of.
I remember I felt well. I went in I think I did my year 9 and year 10, and I did my year 9 and year 10 at Upfield. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good experience. So when did Bordy open up? When did the Bordy Mosque open up?
About 85 officially opened up.
And what did you do?
Officially.
Yeah.
So at that stage I was at at RMIT around those sort of times. But I wasn't really going to religious classes anymore. But when I was 18, I came back again, basically. So I was sort of called back to help out with the newspaper that they were making. And I bought a computer and computerized the whole newspaper. So a lot of people don't know, but they used to have their own monthly newspaper, which then turned into a magazine. And it was all done by typewriters and photocopiers and things like that.
Oh,
and I
old
sent
school.
it to a
What were they putting in it back then?
A bit of everything. So they had the imam would write something. So it was all religion basically. Okay. But they had some news about Turkey as well. And they would get that from the embassy in Turkey in Canberra. So the embassy in Canberra would actually fax over some information about what's happening in Turkey. Because really interesting.
In the 80s, you wouldn't have had Google the way it is now.
There was no internet at all. There's no such thing. There was no modem. There was no nothing.
So people would have jumped onto this newspaper and grabbed it and had a look to see what was happening in Turkey and overseas. And
I think it still existed till early 2000. I think, but then after that it disappeared. But I think they should have still done it. I think it's still important. Even if it was a brief one, just a 2-page sort of like a bulletin. In fact, in one stage we were coming up with bulletins. There was one stage when I was there. So in my early, when I was about 20. Instead of always coming up, the newspaper would take so much effort, so it would take like a month, or sometimes we'd skip a month and do it the second month, depending on what happened.
Yep.
But we'd come up with bulletins, so it was like a 1-pager, and then it would have information about what's going on, because there was so much activity going on at that stage. All the mosques were being built everywhere. So Broadmeadows Mosque was built, but there was a lot of others that were trying to build, like Thomastown and places like that.
Okay.
Money was always being collected, help this one, help that one. There was a lot of activity going on at that stage.
Yeah.
So that was, And so until probably I got married, I was there. Once I got married, I actually found a job in Canberra and I moved away. So
Wow, Canberra.
yeah, 7 years I was there. But until then, I was so from like 18 to 23, I was involved heavily in the Broadmeadows Mosque.
So after 23, did you get
Got
married at
married.
23?
Yeah, I got married. So married, and in fact, like the day I left, there was actually an election for our committee, and we were voted out anyway. So he's been there for so long.
Okay. Wow. I didn't know that happens because
the day
I'm
I left.
looking at Broadmeadows now. I don't see people getting voted out. The same people have been there for a very long time, and I mean a very long time.
Yeah, they decided to vote us out because we've been there for too long. So
Okay.
that's okay. New blood comes in and out, and I think it should still happen. So it doesn't happen anymore as far as I can see.
Yeah, it is a little unfortunate. Look, that is great to happen. I mean, when you put these new young guys in and, they come up with these new ideas and obviously how to run things a little bit differently. Let's get back to Canberra. Why did you go there? What made you go there? So you're saying work?
Job, work.
Okay.
Had a good opportunity, once in a lifetime sort of job, to go. It wasn't just working, it was learning. So it was a very different kind. It was IT still. I was in IT anyway, but a very different area, very large scale sort of job. So that's why it was basically, I had to take it or,
And so 7 years in Canberra, was there mosques there back then?
Yep, there is. There's a central mosque that is close to all the embassies in the centre, sort of very close to Parliament House, and that's the one I used to go to all the time.
Okay.
But there were a couple of other committees that were trying to build their own mosque while I was there. I think they have now, but while I was there, they were only getting together at Ramadan and times like that, trying to set up their own places, like one in the south and one in the north.
Okay.
But I think the southern one has been built, I'm thinking.
Okay.
It's been so long. I left in 2000. It's been 20 years since I left. So
Yeah, well,
I'm sure they did something now,
Definitely. There's probably still a Muslim community there.
There's a big Muslim community. It's, a big mixture too.
Oh.
So, I mean, like we go to Broadmeadows Mosque, it's all Turkish. We go to Milli Görüş, mostly Turkish. There are other nationalities, but you go to Canberra, it's every nationality.
Oh, wow.
Whatever you want, from the Chinese to, whatever.
Do they have separate?
Asians.
Because here in Broady, that we do have a lot of different mosques and a lot of different, nationalities. But I guess, was it like the one mosque bringing in all these different nationalities?
Yeah, absolutely. As big as the central mosque. So everyone, got together there.
That's amazing.
I used to go during Ramadan as well. It was a very good experience just to meet up with people at that time. It was like our get together, with the other Turkish friends of ours.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a very big mixture there, which is good. That's good, I think Canberra is doing well. And then like the southern area, they're more of a more Pakistani and that sort of group of people, but still a mixture. But it seems to be more heavily in the sort of Pakistani, Sri Lankan sort of at that time anyway. I don't know what it's like now. But the southern group was predominantly them.
Well, here in Melbourne, Canberra, I guess Australia, throughout the years, you've been to different mosques, you've experienced different things. What have you found? Like, has your beliefs from the Quran before changed to the way they are now, or in terms of Quran and Hadiths? What have you come across? What type of information for these mosques?
Nothing really. I mean, I still had the traditional kind of beliefs that everyone does, the very basic knowledge, knew how to read the Quran, knew how to pray, we knew some basic surahs. I probably did a lot more than most people at my time, at my age, because when I was actually in the committee at Aydin, I actually asked for help from the imam at that time to give me personal classes, personal lessons. So I was getting, not your typical stuff, but again, it was a lot of memorization that he was giving me. Instead of talking about what the religion was or, reading the Quran and this is what this means. We never went through one time, I remember, about what something meant. It was more about, how to read the adhan.
Yep.
How to, how to read this better than what you were reading it before.
This is why it's here, and you just need to read it like that. Simple.
Yep.
Exactly. So no in-depth information.
There was no in-depth information. We did talk about certain topics, but when I go back to them now, it's like they're not even very important, these topics, and they didn't really relate to the Quran that much either. Very basic stuff. Very basic stuff that had nothing to do with anything really. So it came to a point you have to say, stop and go. I've got to take this into my own hands.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, the education isn't really out there. The religious education that you think you need, and I think that's the problem.
So what research were you doing?
So it was a bit of reading, but I wasn't reading the Quran yet.
Okay.
It was quite interesting. A lot of Google reading, YouTube videos and things like this.
So this is early on.
This is very early on.
Okay.
This is very early. I've read a lot of books.
Yep.
All sorts of books. About the afterlife, about Qiyamet alamets, or like the coming times. What happens when you die? I read all sorts of things. I used to tell people about it. I used to explain these things to everyone.
What would you explain?
Just about what's going to happen. The end times, for instance.
Judgment Day.
Judgment Day. How it's going to happen. What's going to happen. I used to talk about this to everyone.
Yep.
It's funny because my perception's completely changed now because now it's based on fact, not a lot of the fiction that I was reading at that time.
So the facts that you found now, what are they? Well, compared to before.
The facts, I realize that, this is something that you realize late. It's very unfortunate that I had to realize it so late, but you realize that the Quran has actually got information in there about all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you need to know that the Quran is the source of information first. Now, a lot of the books I was reading weren't even, they were not Quran related. They weren't even Hadith related, some of them.
Yeah.
They were just stories, revelation. They're not revelations. What do they call them? They're just stories, really.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate part. There are actually a lot of beliefs that aren't even Hadith related that are out there. That's being talked about quite often as if it's religion.
Well,
it's like, hold on, but then you realize later that religion is through Allah given to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Okay, so there's Sahih Hadith, there's Hadiths. Which ones do you find relevant to, say, the Quran?
Which ones are okay?
Weak or
yeah?
irrelevant?
So there's this. We always hear this common term, it's Sahih Hadith.
Yeah,
Sahih means it's the real one. Okay.
Exactly. What is that?
So what's irrelevant? So there's a few. I've got a few sort of examples. So here's one. This is supposed to be Sahih.
Okay.
If it says if a husband bashes his wife, you never ask why.
That's through Bukhari or
this is Abu Dawud. So it's
Abu
one of the Sahih ones. There's another one. It says if you're praying and in front of you a lady, so it could be your wife basically. It says a woman, a donkey, or a black dog goes in front of you, your prayer's gone.
Again, Sahih.
Yeah.
Dawood?
So this one is in Muslim, Dawood, Tirmizi, the same ones, and a few others. But the Sahih ones are those three Sahih. So another one, this is supposed to be Sahih. This is, it says, this is Bukhari, Muslim, Ibn Majah, there's a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
It says hell will be filled with mainly women.
Because of gossip, I'm guessing.
No. And then there's some other, this is very relevant, a very irrelevant one. It says when you put food on the fire, go get wudu.
So when hot food is on...
When you're cooking. So you put a pot of food on the fire.
Yeah.
Go get up this now. Go get wudu.
Why
don't know.
This is all it says in a hadith.
Yeah, this is all it says.
In either Bukhari. Well, not all of them sound like that, but these are some of the examples that you're giving us.
These are examples. These are the ones that
seem a little odd.
They're a little odd, yeah. It says, another one, like Abu Dawud.
Okay.
Someone that doesn't do their namaz, kill them.
He says that.
Yeah.
So I've never heard of
this.
This
is a very common one. So this is just one that I brought up, but this is a very common one. So most madhabs all believe, madhabs all believe that someone that doesn't pray is to be either beaten up first, which is Hanafi madhab, beaten up and then killed, or a lot of them actually are to be killed.
In the madhabs?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So
I've never been taught this throughout.
No, so I've never
any mosque.
I've never heard these things either until you start investigating. Go, wait, hold on, this is Sahih. Hold on, no one's doing this. Okay. But this is what's in there. This is what it actually says.
Well, which ones go against the Quran? Is there any hadiths that do that?
So against the Quran, there's quite a few. So look, again, say in Bukhari, again, it says if someone changes their religion, kill them.
If they're Muslim and they change their religion?
That's the thing. Doesn't say which way. That's what it's implying, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's funny because it's basic. It says someone who changes their religion, kill them. But in the Quran, it says there is no compulsion in religion. In Baqarah Surah 256, there's no compulsion.
Okay.
There's no death. So if there's no compulsion, how can there be death associated with you changing your religion?
Okay, so that's a
No
great
compulsion.
example.
Yeah. This is directly going against it. Another one, it says, there's a hadith, a Bukhari hadith. It's mentioned that a Jewish man cast a spell on our prophet. And then he was influenced by it and walked around dazed for days.
Dazed for days.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in other words, some sort of magic was given, put on to our prophet by a Jew. And so he didn't know what he was saying, basically. That's what I meant. So the dazed part is that. In Turkish, it makes more sense to me sometimes because it says he's just walking dazed and without knowing what's going on.
Do you have the quotes? Can you quote?
Yeah, so that's Bukhari
76/47
it says. It's also in Hanbal, but it's in Bukhari. But there's an ayat that actually directly relates to this, that it's not true. So this is saying some magic was cast, a spell was cast on our prophet. And there is an ayat that actually says, a treasure presented, so what does it say? It says, some people will say that you follow not a man affected by magic. So it's saying that some people have said that he only is basically saying the same thing. Or does he have a garden from which he eats? And the wrong says you not follow a man affected by magic. It's Furqan 8 basically. Okay. So Furqan Surah 8, if you actually go into it, these two, the ayat actually relates to this particular thing. So in one of them you're saying, the Quran is saying he's not affected by magic. This prophet, because at that time there was talk about it, that they were saying that our prophet is actually affected by jinns, affected by, I don't know if you've heard about that, affected by magic, that he's under a spell, and that's why he's coming up with all of these things about the Quran. And at the same time, there's a hadith that came out and says, yes, he is affected by magic. How could this be?
So what do you think someone should do when they come across these type of hadiths, when they're looking into research and they come across the Quran saying one thing and the hadith saying another?
Well, obviously you've got to take the Quran first.
Okay.
So this is the problem with it, that
although
we've said sahih, so we've said that they're actually true hadiths, how can this be true? So there is no such thing as automatically saying they're true. You can't just say Bukhari is all true or Abu Duat is all true. You've got to relate it to the Quran. So if this hadith actually go against the Quran, well, then how can you take it? You can't take it. You've got to take the Quran ayat.
Is it because the Quran came to us early on during the Prophet, after the Prophet passed on, compared to, say, the hadiths coming, for example, Bukhari, I think, got some of these hadiths 200
years later. Yeah, that's right. Again, so hadith were put together. So the hadiths supposedly existed all this time, but they're third-hand information. So the hadith are never written by the prophets. It's people that have seen our prophet or people that have heard of our prophet say something, and they've tried to memorize it. And then 200 years later, Bukhari, Abu Dawud, all these people basically collected hadith and put them into a book format.
Let's tell some of these guys that don't understand too much about how it's really happened. There is a lot of people out there. So, for example, Bukhari would go to someone, get the hadith from him, because he'll also ask him questions like, well, who did you hear it from?
That's right.
Who did you hear it from, and what were they doing? And
he'd try to find the chain, basically.
Yep.
So he'd work out the chain, and then work out who actually first narrated that particular hadith, and then they would look at the character of the person.
Okay.
So the character of the person would be, okay, yes, he's a trustworthy person, and the chain is strong. That's how we take it somehow. That's the most basic way of explaining it. It goes in a lot more deeper, but that's their basic science. That is it a trustworthy source, and is the chain, a proper chain? There are stories that Bukhari had 1 million, hadith that he collected, and he only has a few thousand that he's actually kept in the end. So he's actually thrown away a lot of them.
Oh, okay. Well,
some say 1 million, some say 600,000. There's a few mixed stories, but 500,000 we'll say that's the basic minimum that he's actually had in his hand, and he threw them away and ended up with a few thousand.
Okay. The information I got, I thought Sahih through Bukhari was, I think, 7,000, and the non-Sahih ones were roughly about the same. I don't know the numbers to them, but
very mixed numbers with it. So, but just saying they're Sahih and say they're all Sahih, obviously it doesn't work. You know, if I can just open it up and have a look and find certain things that are directly against the Quran, it can't actually happen.
Is there any more examples you have of hadiths that go directly against the Quran?
Yeah.
Like with some of the research that you might have done?
Well, very basic one. It says, I heard the Messenger of Allah saying, this is Buhari in 89. I heard the Messenger of Allah saying, those who will receive the most severe punishment from Allah on the day of resurrection are the painters.
Are the painters? Oh, the ones that do the photos.
Photos of picture.
Yeah, we hear this a lot.
A lot. But it says the most severe punishment. So there's an ayat that talks about this. Not this, but it tells you who gets the most severe punishment.
Okay. It's not the guys that make the idols. It's the
talking
ones
about
that
painters. Yeah.
the painters.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's an ayat in Nisa 4.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the fourth surah. It says, indeed, Allah does not forgive association with him. So association as in shirk, this is what it's talking about, does not forgive association with him. But he forgives what is less than that from who he wills. Okay. So he's saying that, I'm not going to interpret it. It basically says anyone that commits shirk is not forgiven. Anything under that can be forgiven.
Okay.
Now, in this hadith, it's saying that painters are the most, will have the most severe punishment.
Okay.
Well,
that's true, because if it's saying in the Quran that you turn to God and say, forgive me,
absolutely,
he's the most forgiving.
Yeah. According to this hadith, does that mean a painter is worse than a person who commits shirk, that associations other than Allah?
I guess that does raise a question, doesn't it?
It is. It's very, I think this is a basic, and this is Buhari, so I'm not quoting any of the weaker ones. These are Sahih Buhari hadiths. Yeah, that's.
Well, we've got the Dajjal. I guess I want to touch up on a little bit of that. You think is Jesus going to come back? Like, is there things mentioned in? We know this through hadiths that, Dajjal's going to come, Jesus is going to come, Mehdi is going to come. With the information that you've looked into in the Quran, what do you believe? Do you think Jesus will come back?
So this topic is one of my favorite topiks before I started researching.
It's great that we're talking about it then.
I used to love it. I used to read everything about this. When did Dajjal coming? Even, there were a lot of people actually trying to work out when he's going to come.
Okay.
And a lot of them were at these times. I'm going back like 30 years ago.
Tall buildings. And, okay.
30 years ago, I used to read this stuff all the time, tell people about it. Jesus, Dajjal is almost here, waiting for Jesus to come back, waiting for the Mehdi. I was waiting.
Yep.
But after researching, you find out that Dajjal is not even mentioned once, ever, in the Quran, or Mehdi. Jesus is not mentioned about coming back. There's actually ayats that tell you he's dead.
He's like dead.
Dead.
He's in the grave.
Absolutely.
That's it, finished.
Yeah.
Which ayat?
So there's a few of them. So there's one, if you go to the third surah, Ali Imran 55, it says, "O Jesus, I will take your soul and raise you up to me."
Okay.
Okay. A lot of people try to interpret this in a different way and say, no, he didn't actually kill him. He just took him up. But it actually says soul.
Okay.
The word itself. And the word there in Arabic, so when I tried to investigate this a little bit more, there's actually a word there that says mutawaffiq. Mutawaffiq, which means death. Now this, or taking of your soul. This taking of your soul can happen in two ways. So either you're asleep or you could be dead. That's how your soul is taken away. So Allah actually says he takes your soul when you're asleep or you're dead. So they always try to relate it to the other one, that he was put to sleep and then taken up.
Okay.
Okay.
So while he was on the cross.
Well, he was never on the cross.
Okay.
He was never on the. I mean, that's just something the Christians believe. He was never on the cross. But during that time, they're saying that Allah took Jesus away.
Okay. So during the time where he was getting tortured, he
wasn't. But yeah, that's these are all the misconceptions about it. None of this really happened. There is an ayat. I don't have the ayat with me, but there is an ayat that talks about how they thought they killed Jesus, but they never did. Someone else was instead. Okay,
so you're saying that he didn't feel that torture. He didn't feel that pain because Allah took his. So did he take? No.
So it doesn't say when. So we don't know when he died.
Okay.
So we don't know when he died. We know that he died. He was never taken up. There's no mention about him being taken up with
To
a
the
body,
heavens.
to the heavens with a body, so that he can return.
Okay.
In fact, there's an ayat that actually talks about him. There's a conversation between Allah and Isa alayhi salam in Qiyam, in Akhirat times. And from that ayat, you can tell that he's not coming back.
What does it say?
So,
Do we have that?
yeah, there is, I think it's, so Ma'idah 116, which is the 5th surah, in 116 and 117. So this is a conversation between Allah and Isa alayhi salam. And what he's saying is, it says, and beware the day when Allah will say, "O Jesus, son of Mary, did you say to the people, take me and my mother as deities besides Allah?" So Allah is asking, did you tell everyone that, me and my mother are deities, like as in the son of, God?
Okay. What page was that?
So Ma'idah 116.
Ma'idah 116.
So you might have
I've got, so the Quran I've got,
which version is that one?
this one here comes with a really, really cool box
It's a
as
nice
well.
looking one, yeah.
These are beautiful Qurans. Great to give gifts. It's from www.quranproject.org.
Okay.
You go online and it's free. I think you only pay
Can you
for
see it online
postage.
as well?
Yeah, you can.
Like they have an online version as well?
I don't think they have the online version. I'm not too sure.
But it's free, so it's just pay for delivery.
It is free. And it kind of, before you go towards the Quran, it kind of mentions a couple of things. Like there's a poem here, for example, "My mind ponders and contemplates dwelling on the reality of life, yet nothing is as scary as the realness of the ever-living, his closeness, his knowledge of my inner self. The insides tremble and frighten at this reality. I awake sometimes, I hear nothing except my heart beating. Beat after beat it beats. One thought is flowing in my mind. All that my mind and body desires at this moment is to stand before him. This feeling I wouldn't exchange for the world, to fall prostrate and praise him. Tell him I love him and am longing to meet him. Life is a journey with many intended ambitions, yet mine is simple, to meet my Lord when I am closest to him." So very, very beautiful Quran.
Okay.
Something that I've
Is this
gifted.
like in the beginning?
This is the beginning, yeah.
Someone's
So
written this.
you've got the introduction. He's put a poem in there. I've gifted a few of these to some non-Muslims that have been interested.
That's
have actually asked for it, and it's definitely something that I recommend a lot of people help. I guess the project with. You can donate, or you can buy one yourself and just hand it over to a non-Muslim.
So is that a particular translation of their own, or is it like one of the common ones, like the Sahih International?
So this is
Yusuf Ali.
What does it say? Edited by, with sort of introduction to Quran translations.
Like, is it a
Edited
new
by
translation?
Yeah, it could be. It says El Mehri, so A.B. Well, let's go into
Going to say Ma'idah 116.
Okay, Ma'idah 116.
I mean, it'll be similar. I just want to see what sort of.
We got to look for it in
So
the introduction.
5, yeah.
Do you know what page it is?
No, because it'll be different, because it's the translation books are all different pages.
Okay.
So the 5th surah.
This Surah Al-Ma'idah, there it is. It is page 98. So let's go into 98.
And then go to 116 and 117.
116.
Just see if you read it from there. See if it's a newer translation, it might be much more simpler English.
Okay. Here we go. "And beware the day when God will say, O Jesus, son of Mary, did you say to the people, take me and my mother as the deities besides God? He will say, exalted are you. It was not for me to say that to which I have no right. If I had said it, you would have known it. You would have known what is within myself, and I do not know what is within myself. Indeed, it is you who is the knower of the unseen."
Yeah. Read the next one, and I'm going to tell you why it's important.
"I only said to them what you ordered me, to worship God, my Lord and your Lord, and I was a witness over them as long as I was among them. But when you took me up, you were the observer over them, and you are over all things witness. If you should," so this is verse 118, "if you should punish,"
that's probably it, yeah.
"if you should punish them, indeed they are your servants. But if you forgive them, indeed it is you who is the exalted in might, the wise." God will say, "This is the day when the truthful will benefit from their truthfulness. For them are gardens in paradise beneath the rivers flow, wherein they will abide forever. God being pleased with them, and they will with Him. That is a great attainment."
Yeah, so that was good that you read the last one, because that last one is explaining to you that it's Judgment Day.
Okay.
So this conversation is happening at Judgment Day.
Mm.
These 3 ayats that you read. The important part about it is Allah is asking him, did you say this? And he's saying, no, I'm not aware of it. It actually says, I'm not aware of it. Yeah. But only you would know if I had said something. He's saying, I never said anything like that, and I'm not aware of it, because when you took me away, I was unaware of it.
Yeah.
Now, if Jesus had come back, so this is Judgment Day. So this is assuming that everyone's now up there, and Allah is talking to Jesus. Now, he's saying, I'm not aware of it, because while I was there, I was not aware of any of this. Only you know what's actually happening. And if you were to judge them, then you would judge them depending on whatever situation they're in. Hmm. If he had come back, he would not give that answer. He would say, why would he say, I'm not aware of it? He would have said, yes, I know. When I went back the second time, I was aware that all these people were saying that I'm, the Son of God, and I tried to convince them. He would have said something like that. Yep. But his answer is, I'm not aware. I'm not aware of anything like that. While I was down there, I only did whatever you commanded me to do. I'm not aware.
So while he was at the heavens.
Yeah, so this is talking about judgment. This is when this is the end of the world.
Okay.
This is Akhirat. Because that's what that last ayat we read actually said. It said, this is the day. There was a mention that you said in there. I don't know if you remember that last ayat. So it's talking about Judgment Day, and Allah is talking to Jesus. So this is after everything. The whole world's gone. The universe is gone, and we're now on Judgment Day. He's saying, did you actually say to the people that you and your mother are deities? In other words, the sons of God, and basically, most people think he is God as well. Okay. And he's saying, I'm not aware of it, because when you took me up, I'm not aware of what happened after that. Now, if he had come back, he would have said, I am aware of it, but I never told him that.
Yeah.
So he's saying, well, after you took me, I don't know what happened. I never mentioned anything like that. I don't know what's going on. But you judge them however you're going to judge them. This is the proof, from what I understood as soon as I read it, that Jesus is never coming back.
Okay.
Why wouldn't it say? Here's the most important part about this whole conversation. So Dajjal, Jesus, Mehdi, none of these are mentioned. Dajjal is not mentioned at all by name even.
Yeah.
Mehdi is not mentioned whatsoever as coming back at all. And Jesus is just talking about his death, not talking about him coming back. Now, such an important topic like this, you would think that it would have some sort of detail, probably a lot of detail, but let's say some at least. And it's not there. None of it's there. Not even a mention of it.
Yeah. Because even Muhammad ﷺ flying to the heavens on a horse, speaking to God, about the prayers. I guess,
so this is Miraj.
Yeah, I don't know if that's also in the Quran or not. I don't remember reading it.
No, so Miraj, so the Miraj conversation, or the Miraj thing, is always related to another surah called Isra.
Miraj is a night. Is the word Miraj Turkish, or?
It's I think it's the same word.
What's the definition of it?
So Miraj is the what was the explanation of it? It's actually the ascending, or something like that.
Okay.
But the problem is, so it's always related to another surah called Isra surah. So they always talk about Isra Miraj.
Yep.
Look, it's in the Quran, it's in Isra surah. The problem is Surah Isra, there's one verse about it. And the verse it basically goes like this: "There's glory to God who take his servant for a journey by night from the sacred mosque to the furthest mosque, whose precincts we did bless, in order that we might show him some of our signs. For he is the one who heareth and seeth." That's it. That's what the Quran says.
Okay.
There's no mention about him flying anywhere. So I don't know if you know the whole story. So the whole Miraj story is that our Prophet was woken up at night, one night, taken to Masjid al-Aqsa, which actually means furthest mosque. That's actually the meaning of it.
Furthest mosque.
Furthest mosque. So when I investigated this a bit deeper, and I used to love this story, so I used to tell this story to everyone, until I found out that this story doesn't really exist.
I want to hear this.
Yeah, so he's taken to Masjid al-Aqsa, where he actually prays, and there's different versions of this. I've read many different versions of it. Doesn't seem to be one. He actually prays with Musa alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam at Masjid al-Aqsa. And he prays with them, and after the prayer, they both have, and there's a different version. Some people will say, I've never heard this before. I've read many of them. But there's one version where they actually have wine in their hands. And they're offering it to our Prophet. And the Prophet says, and then they go, oh, hold on, we can't offer it to you because it's forbidden for you.
Because you're still alive.
You're still alive. You're not allowed to have it.
Okay.
He says, okay. And so they drink it. And then this horse, Burak, comes again. And they take off and they go up into the heavens. But as they take off, there's actually a stone in Masjid al-Aqsa, they say, which is actually still up it actually is floating. There's no such thing.
What do you mean floating?
So with the point where our Prophet left with the horse is a particular rock.
Yep.
And as that horse lifted up, apparently, that stone never touched the ground again. This is a myth that people still believe. Because whoever goes over there has a look that, there's one part of it that's sort of sitting up, but the rest of it's actually touching the ground. So it's just a rock, like a big stone, massive stone. I've seen pictures of it, so it's not up in the air. There's no such thing.
Yeah. Where is this rock supposed to be?
In Masjid al-Aqsa.
Okay.
So all there in that precinct.
That's interesting. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've been.
I've been.
Oh, there you go. So they never talked about the story?
Sorry, I've never been to Aqsa.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm confusing myself with something else.
No, not in Kaaba or anything.
Not in Kaaba, yeah.
Masjid al-Aqsa.
Okay.
So then he goes up into the heavens with the horse, and they go up to the 7 heavens. And as they're going up, he goes and sees Allah.
Okay.
But at that time Jibreel alayhi salam can't go with him as well.
Wait, so Burak takes him to Masjid al-Aqsa?
Yep.
Does he leave him there to go on that rock? Or
he basically he prays with Jesus and Musa alayhi salam
at Aqsa.
Okay. First, and then the Burak actually takes him up into the heavens.
I didn't even know Burak meant that, but well, there you go. I've got a friend Burak.
Yeah,
so
it's actually
the meaning
horse.
of it. There's a
horse.
Flying
horse.
Flying horse. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I've never been able to see where else that name appears. For what reason? Or is that the only reason, or does it come from somewhere else? But that's the name Burak. So Burak is the name of the horse.
Okay.
It's not what it is, but it's the name. So it's actually called Burak. And it's a big horse that flies with wings.
Mm-hmm.
Good explanations of this.
Yeah.
So he goes up into the heavens with him, and then there's a point where he's traveling so far to see Allah that Jibreel says, I can't go anymore. I'm not physically, my body's not able to take the journey. But somehow Muhammad alayhi salam goes up there with the horse. And as he's up there, he gives the 2 last ayats of Baqarah Surah. I'm going to get into this, why this is such a problem.
He gets the ayats.
The last 2 ayats. So in Isra Surah, it actually says, we sent, we created this night journey to give some of our signs to our Prophet. And those signs actually mean ayats. So some of our ayats, to show him some of our ayats. But in the story, they say that the last 2 ayats of Baqarah Surah were given then, while he was up there.
Okay.
So normally everything else is given on the earth. When he's here, Jibreel salam comes and gives him, ayat by ayat.
Yes.
Those 2 were given up there. The last 2 surahs of Baqarah.
And this is hadith saying that they were given up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the whole Miraj story. Some of it's not in hadith, some of it isn't. It's a whole story, and there's different versions of this. So as so he gets the last 2 surahs, but at the same time, he's given the amount of times the prayer is supposed to happen, 50 times a day.
Okay.
So as he's coming down the different levels of heaven, the 7 levels of heaven, he sees Musa alayhi salam. And Musa alayhi salam stops him and says, oh, so what happened? What did Allah give you? He said, well, he gave me 2 ayats of Baqarah Surah, and he gave us a present, a gift of 50 namaz a day. And he said, whoa, hold on. This is the story. Like, is that actually
50 prayers a day?
50 prayers a day. He says, wait a second. He goes, your people won't be able to do it. He goes, go back. He goes, go back.
Renegotiate.
And Jibreel alayhi salam, this is the story. Jibreel is next to Musa alayhi salam, and he turns around to Jibreel and says, what do you think? He goes, I agree.
So the angel says it as well?
The angel says it too. Jibreel alayhi salam says too, I agree, listen to him sort of.
It's too full on. We're not
too full on.
Yeah, okay.
So he goes back up, and the first time I remember, apparently Allah, he's a bit busy, so he says, make it 40, go away. So he goes up to renegotiate. He goes, okay, 40, go back to our Prophet. So as he's coming down, he goes, what happened? He goes, 40. He goes, too much, go back again.
Is this Musa
happens.
saying the same
Musa
thing?
saying.
Okay.
He keeps sending him up. Eventually he comes back down. So I don't know how many times he goes up because there's different versions of this again. Sometimes he, it drops by half every time. Eventually he gets to 5. When it comes down to 5, it says, Musa alayhi salam, what happened 5? And he goes, go back again, it's still too much. And he goes, I can't, I'm embarrassed to go up and ask again.
So
Just
5 was
leave it
too
at 5.
much?
Yeah, Musa alayhi salam said 5 was too much too.
Okay.
He said, go back up. And he did.
Even though the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it shows in the Quran, prayed 6 times. Well, it doesn't show the Prophet. It mentions that there's 6 different prayers in the Quran.
There are 6 different prayers. Well, but there's 5 that are actually farz for us anyway.
Yep. And the 6th one is something
the
that he did.
The 6th one is tahajjud. That was farz for him only.
Oh, okay.
So tahajjud is actually farz for our Prophet. In the Quran, it actually mentions this. It's farz for him, not farz for us, but obviously something that we should be doing, when we can.
Yeah, definitely, because it's mentioned in the Quran
Absolutely.
that he's doing something like that.
We should be doing it.
Yeah.
When you got time, do it. Or, during Ramadan, for instance,
So
you should
what do you do? You wake up in the middle of your sleep?
You wake up after, So after you've slept and woken up, that's when you do it. Minimum of 2 rakats.
What time, roughly?
You have to have slept.
Okay, so an hour or 2 hours. Doesn't matter. Just put your alarm on.
You have to have slept and woken up.
The reward would be better if it's like deep sleep and the alarm goes off and you wake up and
it's going to be like 2 a.m. in the morning or 3 a.m. in the morning or something.
You're pushing yourself. I've got to get out of bed. I have to pray. I lost my
that shows commitment.
Yeah,
and there's more to it than that. So I think it's also your mind is a lot clearer at that time, and that's what it really is. It's got to do with the clarity that you have.
Okay.
Middle of the night, you don't have many other things to think about. If you got up and started praying and thinking about what you're praying with, it's going to be a very thoughtful sort of prayer.
Definitely.
And that's what it's really about.
Definitely.
So he's given the 5. So in the end, he says, that's it. I'm not going back. I'm going to stick with the 5. And he comes back down. And so the problem with this whole story, I found, and I used to love this story and I used to explain it and I thought it was, real. I thought this is how it was. The problem with it is that this story, so it's saying that Baqarah Surah came, the last 2 Baqarah Surah things.
Yep.
This happened in Mecca apparently. So when he was in Mecca, this actual whole event happened.
This whole event?
This whole event. So this Miraj thing happened while our Prophet was in Mecca. The problem with this is Medina came down while he was in Medina. Baqarah Surah came down while he was in Medina, not in Mecca.
Okay.
And the other issue with it is that the time that this happened. So it happened when Isra Surah came. So Isra Surah came down when he was in Mecca. And the issue with it is that the story in the hadith says that Hazrat Aisha says that when it happened, his bed was still warm when he went and came back.
Okay.
So during that night, so it was a short time. She's saying this is the hadith. His bed was still warm when he went and came back. The problem is this happened in Medina, Mecca, and the time that it happened, they weren't even married. She was still young. They got married about 5 or 6 years later when he was in Medina.
Interesting.
So nothing matches up.
Okay.
I mean, number one, Baqarah Surah was after, like when he went to Medina. It did not happen then. He didn't get the last 2 ayats of it.
So he was in Medina and then they went to Mecca and they settled in Mecca.
That's later. But this all happened before that. This happened before Medina, before they even went to Medina.
Okay.
So this Isra Surah came before they went to Medina. He was told the stories that he got the last 2 surahs of Baqarah, but they hadn't been to Medina, and Medina is to be known to all have come while they were in Medina. And it's also talking about Hazrat Aisha saying that his bed was still warm, and they weren't even married.
Okay.
They got married 6 years later, apparently, when they were in Medina. So none of this story matches up with anything. It's not in the Quran.
Yep.
They're relating it to a ayat that has nothing to do with that whole story.
Okay.
Because all it says is that Isra 1 is talking about a night walk.
A night walk. So
a walk in the night. And he was taken from, well, not taken, but he walked from Masjid al-Haram and it's to Masjid al-Aqsa. Now, Masjid al-Aqsa means the furthest mosque. It doesn't actually mean that mosque.
Okay, so
So
in the Quran it does mention how he gets the praise, does it? Or
how he gets the what?
the actual praise? Like you're saying he's done a short walk to...
He's walked to the furthest mosque.
Okay.
So Masjid al-Aqsa. When researching this, I found out that Masjid al-Aqsa that exists there now never had that mosque didn't exist, and it never had that name Masjid al-Aqsa until about 80 years later, after our Prophet died. So Masjid al-Aqsa never existed. That was just given later.
Okay, but
so the meaning
Muslims,
of it is, the
Muslims were praying towards that direction. So did it have a different name?
It's called Maqsil Bait, I think it's
okay.
called.
So it did have a different name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's and the Muslims they actually prayed when they were at Medina like that. So while they were at Medina, they did it that way until the Qibla changed back to Kaaba.
Okay.
But it's not Masjid al-Aqsa, and there's no mention of it anywhere else. But the meaning of Masjid al-Aqsa is the furthest mosque, and that's what it's talking about. Now, that mosque being created 80 years later and then given that name, that's what history tells you.
Okay.
When you look at history of when it was built and what happened and everything, that was the name given later. But it's just talking about the furthest mosque.
Yeah, because people say he couldn't have walked that far from,
Yeah. Look, Allah could have made him do it.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, we do believe in miracles, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Through prophets.
But there's nothing to show that it happened. Now, why is it that Isra Surah doesn't explain more about it? Why doesn't it say that we sent him up into the heavens?
So it doesn't say that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Why doesn't it say? It said it says the night walk. So the night walk, this is what Isra is, the night walk. He walked from Masjid Haram to the furthest mosque, Masjid al-Aqsa. Well, that's what Masjid al-Aqsa means, the furthest mosque. And apparently this was a common practice that he did then anyway. He apparently used to do it quite often, where he would go to different mosques around further away. And sometimes he would go, to the... So you've been to Hajj, so did you do Umrah any other time besides the first one?
No.
No? Okay. No. So when you were there, did you do Umrah again?
What do you mean?
So when you're at Hajj, like when we were there, after we actually did our Hajj and we still had a bit of time, we went with the Imam, out to another mosque, like Hazrat Aisha's mosque.
Yeah, beautiful
because
mosque.
that's just on the precinct of the outside of
I think it's the closest one, isn't it? Like it's the easiest way to get back. Yeah, I love that mosque. We did.
You went there, okay.
Yeah.
And there's the Hudaybiyah, the agreement there, that mosque.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you go there, that's on the precinct.
Yeah, I think they walked there and turned back. Yeah, there was a story about that. And you said when we went with Miligurish, some organisations, they go to Medina first. We went to Mecca first, and then we went to Medina.
Too,
we stayed there, I think, 5 days, which was just enough.
Same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. 5 days again, Medina.
Yeah.
So we pretty much did the same thing.
Yeah.
We saw the people from Miligurish as well, and they were with us at the same time. When we were at Mecca, we went to Medina. Hassan Ojo was there. Yeah, I saw him. Coincidentally saw him up in the Masjid al-Nabi upstairs.
Wow.
Just as we walked up there, and he was just sitting there.
He's a beautiful man.
Yeah, it's very good. So, coincidence.
Yeah. So look, we've got to touch base in a lot of things. Is there anything else you want to mention about this subject? Or
Just briefly, so the name was Beit Maqdis.
Yep.
That's where we used to do, and that's in that direction in Jerusalem. That's where we used to point towards doing our prayer.
Yep.
Not necessarily Masjid al-Aqsa. It's Beit Maqdis.
Okay.
That's probably out. I mean, there's a lot more about it, but that's, we don't have enough proof.
How about, look, another thing that really gets me thinking is the grave. Like, are we going to, because, going to Jum'ahs and going to some sohbets and, where you would sit down, you'll listen to the imam having this conversation about the torture, the torment that you're going to go through in your grave before, like when you pass away, for example, the angels are going to rip your soul out, and they can either they can either have a whip with fire, and they have scary faces, and then they take you to your grave, and you have a spider, you have this smelly creature with one eye or blind or something like that. So
I think there's a lot of detail explained there that doesn't exist anywhere. But yes, you will be ripped out from your body. There's a lot of explanations about that
in the Quran.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you're ripped out of your body depending on how you are. It depends on how worldly you are.
Wow.
The more you're stuck to your worldly life, the harder it's to take. It explains something like that.
Drinking the
I
water.
don't remember exactly where, but yeah, there is explanation of it. But the other details that we have about, the spiders and there's none of those sorts of explanations.
How about that water just before you die? If there's a water that's
Never heard
because
of it.
growing
Yeah.
up
I
in
heard
the
about
Turkish
it,
community,
but yeah, never read about it.
that's all I heard.
Yeah.
You've got a glass of water. It's got snots in it. It's disgusting. It's filthy.
Heard about it, never read it, never
Okay.
found it. If it's somewhere in the Quran and I haven't seen it, I don't know, but I've never seen it.
Yeah.
The other thing is the punishment in the grave. So there doesn't seem to be any punishment in the grave, according to the Quran.
Okay.
So it explains it very differently in that, in fact, there's, normally it's explained that people at our Hira time, so the time that we actually wake up again, when we're all brought back together.
Is that mentioning in the Quran? So there's
It
going
is,
to be a
yeah.
short type
Yeah.
of sleep? Or?
That's right. It's basically a sleep, and I haven't got the ayat for that, but
That's okay.
But it's basically a short sleep, and it makes sense because we're going to be judged on Judgment Day.
Yeah.
That's what Judgment Day is. When everyone wakes up again, why would you be judged again?
True. So you're saying you're going
And there is no ayat about it.
Yes.
So.
So it's like living two lives, being
That's
here
right.
twice.
Yeah.
So you're out there and then you're in the grave and you're living that as well. And
It's
then
a
you're
sleep.
getting judged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a sleep because there's an ayat that says who woke us up. Like during Judgment Day, people are actually saying who woke us up from this sleep. There is an ayat about it. I didn't I didn't write down some notes on that.
How about the hadiths? So some of the Sahih hadiths that, contradict each other. That they're having a little battle against each other. Because we come across some hadiths from different mosques, different imams say different things. Have you come across any of them that are different?
There's one. There's many about. There's actually quite a few actually that I came across.
Mm-hmm.
But like one, there's actually a ritual that they used to do during our Prophet's time. Well, I'd say ritual, but a health thing where they used to actually remove blood from their body.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard about it. It's called hajamat.
Yeah.
And what is they remove blood from their body, and apparently it helps them.
I'll do that.
Toxins out of their body.
I do that. Yeah. So
Do you?
I do it. Yeah.
Really, you actually do this?
It's Chinese medicine. Like it's something that's been
Okay,
there for
yeah, it
thousands
is.
of
Yeah,
years.
but you actually do it. Okay, so apparently it was practiced then. Even our Prophet used to do it.
Yeah. And there's proof that it was before the Prophet, so it was around.
Yeah, it
before.
must be. Yeah, it's not our Prophet. Our Prophet didn't come up with it.
Yeah.
But it's explained something.
But I sometimes get clogginess, when I'm overworked, when I'm overstressed, whatever it may be. And I've got cups done on, like I've shaved my hair, put a cup on my head, around the shoulders or areas that,
So you use a cup and do it?
They put the cup on, so they'll heat the cup up, put the cup on, take it off, and it allows the skin to be softened.
Yep.
And then they get a Gillette and start, cutting
Cutting it, yeah, that's right.
And they put the cup back on and it gets out all this really gooey, bad blood. Like
that's
it's
right.
thick, it's a different colour.
Okay.
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
And so what it does apparently it recreates blood into those areas. Me looking into it a little bit.
How are you getting it done? Are you doing it yourself? Or
I go. There's a brother Murat. He does it in Meadow Heights.
Okay.
He does a really good job. I've been to a few different ones in around Werribee. There was a brother that would do it there.
Does it hurt?
Not really. No. Well, the head one, it feels really tight. And he asks you though, he's like, is this really tight? Because it does give you it can give you a headache if it's that tight, and you adjust it a little bit so that you feel a little bit more comfortable. But it doesn't go for too long. So you're not there for an hour. You're there for about, I think it's a short period of time, about 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Just depends really whereabouts it is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's two hadith in Bukhari and Tirmizi. And they both go against each other because it's about fasting during Ramadan or any other time. It says taking of your blood will break your fast and the person that's taking it from you. The person that's doing it and yourself, your fast is broken if you actually ever get blood taken out. This is in Tirmizi and Abu Dawud and Bukhari. And then again in Tirmizi and Bukhari, there's another hadith that says the Prophet had blood taken out during his fast.
During his fast? While he was fasting?
Yeah, and the other one says yours and the person taking it out, their fast will be broken.
Well, I don't know anyone that's really done that while they've been fasting.
Well,
That's
only the Prophet had it taken out during fast, so it doesn't break your fast.
Mm.
That's one. So there's another one. It's it's a common one that everyone sort of grew up with. It says the Prophet forbid drinking water while standing. Everyone's probably heard of this one. Don't ever drink water while you stand.
So it says
the Prophet forbid. This is exactly
forbids.
the word. So the Prophet forbid drinking water while standing. Abu Dawud.
Okay.
In I'm guessing, book 4, number 3717. Again in Abu Dawud. So it's the same book. Same person who put into the book says, I saw the Prophet drink water standing just like you and me.
Mm.
So which one's correct? I don't know. Which one do I take? Do I just take whichever one I feel? I don't know.
Mm.
Because these are supposed to be sahih. So these aren't.
These are authentic hadiths coming from the same people that are saying.
This is in the same book. Abu Dawud. It's not even two different books.
Wow. So it's in the same book saying two different things.
Yeah.
Two
now, if it
different
was
perspectives.
two different, if it was Bukhari and Muslim, okay, they had different views maybe, and but this is in the same book.
Mm.
So what other? There's some other ones. These are in two different books, but they're supposed to be sahih as well. So if you've done your prayer, okay, say you've done your prayer, and it says then later you went to a jamaat and you tried to do the same prayer again behind an imam. This namaz you have done twice is considered nafilah. So it's okay to do it.
Mm-hmm.
In Abu Dawud, it says do not do the same namaz twice.
Okay.
Don't do it. So if you've done your prayers, you've done your maghrib, and you go at night, and you coincidentally came to the mosque, you're not just going to stand there and do nothing.
Mm.
And that's what it's trying to talk about. So when the imam is doing it, do it again. It's fine. It just won't be considered. You're not doing it twice. You're just doing an extra namaz, a nafilah.
Okay.
You're doing it. But in the Abu Dawud, it says don't do your second, the same namaz
You don't need
twice.
to do it again.
Well, it's saying don't. It says
do not
do the same namaz twice. The other one is saying if you do it, it's nafilah. In other words, there's no harm in doing it. You're not doing the same namaz. If you try to do the same namaz twice, your second one is considered as an extra nafilah.
So people would be confused then. They wouldn't know which one
confusion,
to pick. How do you pick?
How would you pick? There's one more. So again, this is Bukhari and Hanbal. It says our Prophet said animal hides that are processed and are clean. Okay, so it says animal hide that has been processed are clean. This is what our Prophet is actually saying. It says then he came across a dead sheep, our Prophet, and he's telling the people there, he's saying, why don't you make use of this hide? It's a dead animal, because you know how we don't normally eat, like if it's a dead animal, you're not supposed to eat it. So the people weren't actually, obviously, this is what the story is, I'm thinking.
Yep.
They look at the dead animal, they don't want to touch it at all, and say, no, use the hide at least. It's dead, but you can use the hide. Take the skin off, do something with it.
Okay.
But in another hadith, it says the Prophet said, you are not allowed to make use of dead animals' skins, hide, or nerves. So which one is it,
Yeah. So some people would wear that around them and some people won't.
Yeah. Which one is it, Our Prophet has said both ways. Could he have said both ways?
Yeah.
Not really.
Well, look, do you believe in any hadiths? Is there anything that, may...
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Which ones?
Well, here's one. There will be people after me narrating you some words from me. This is a very interesting one. Present their words to the Quran, it says. This is a hadith.
Their words to the Quran.
So it's saying there will be people after me narrating you some words from me. Present their words to the Quran. Take the ones that accord with Quran for granted.
Yeah.
Do not take the ones that contradict with Quran.
Who's that from?
So this is Sunan.
Okay.
Hadith. This is basically saying any hadith that is attributed to me, present it to the Quran. If it matches, then it's it. If it doesn't, it's not from me.
Is this a Sahih hadith?
Yeah.
Who's Sunan? I've never heard of that.
Sunan is another one. So Sunan, there's actually a few. Yeah. There's about 6 Sahih ones. Yeah. Although, even the ones that aren't, but these are the ones in Kutub al-Sittah, from what I understand. But even saying that, there are the hadith that they consider Sahih from other people as well, because it doesn't really have any. In the end, it sort of has more to do with where it came from and the chain that's actually in between. It's just that when they talk about Bukhari, Muslim, they just say that they're all Sahih. They're all been worked out and filtered through sort of thing.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that a lot of the other narrators are not sahih. It's just that some of them are, some of them aren't. They haven't sort of been, checked too much.
Yeah.
But as you can see, some of the examples you can see, even the sahih ones, we've got problems with some of the sahih ones.
So this one's saying, let's reflect on it a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's saying that if what I say matches up with the Quran.
Yeah.
So we've got some of these messhaps that say similar things, like Malik would say something, and Hanifis would say something where if I'm wrong, if you find my information to be wrong from the Quran or from whatever, it's like disregard it. Is that what it's? Is that
that's what it's saying? Yeah,
that's what it's saying.
That's what it's saying.
Okay, so the Prophet even says sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this hadith.
Yeah, of course. And he's saying, do not take the ones that contradict with the Quran. Obviously.
Yeah, because Quran's number one.
So going back to the question, do you believe in the hadith? Well, of course I would believe in this one. Look what he's saying. Why? There's another one, like one that I remember a while ago. Allah's Messenger said, if any one of you can get one rekah of Asr prayer before sunset, he said, complete this prayer. If any of you can get one rekah of Fajr before sunrise, you can complete this prayer. And this is in Bukhari. So what it's trying to say is, just say the sun is just about to come up.
Okay.
You've just woken up.
Yeah.
You haven't got much time. As long as you've just started and you've started the first rak'ah, so you've seen Allahu Akbar and you've just started, then you can complete it, even if the sun's coming up. You can take time.
So as say the sunlight comes and you're in your second rak'at, it's
fine. Yeah. As long as you've began just before the sun started.
Okay.
It could be a minute before. You've just started. It's like, I can't see it. Great, I've started. Allahu Akbar. You just doesn't matter if the sun's coming up after that, because the prayer could take you 10 minutes. You might do a really slow one. It's fine. You can do it. That's what it's saying.
About that whole sun, for example, even when you're fasting, they say that the Prophet ﷺ, the way he practiced, it gets a bit confusing as well. Like, I would stop my fast until I see the break of dawn.
Yes.
And it's different to what I have on my app. It's about a half an hour different. Oh,
wait. So when you say break fast, so at night you're talking about?
Yeah. So at night you'll wake up, say 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, you're talking about in the morning. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. In the morning. 4:30 in the morning you'll wake up. You'll look on the balcony. The sun obviously isn't up. It's dark. In a few hours will go on. You'll look on the balcony again. You can't see that break of dawn.
Yeah.
So I just
you have to see it.
Yeah, exactly. So in the break of dawn, what is it? That's a bit of that light, that blueness towards the sky, isn't it?
It's the red and the white.
It's the red and the white.
Like so it talks about this white string, be'aziplik, which is the white string. So when you see the break of dawn, you see this white. You see the sky red a bit, and you see this white line. As long as it's not cloudy.
Okay.
If it's clouds, obviously you're not going to see. But you see this white line. When you see that, that's the time to stop.
Okay.
Unfortunately, a lot of our prayer times that tell you this are not reflecting that.
Okay.
They're a lot longer, half an hour before.
Yep.
But I've actually gone up and had a look at this many years ago. I think about 2012, 2013, somewhere between there. 2013, I think. Actually went up to Mount Ridley a few times.
Yeah.
I've got video footage of it. I've actually got video footage of it while I wait there. So I wait 2 different times. It's the time that we're told normally that to stop the fast, basically. So to stop, and then you're able to pray supposedly after that. So when you're supposed to stop eating, I've actually got the times there of what it's supposed to be, and it's like, yep, stop. Pitch black.
Yeah.
Everywhere's pitch black.
That's what I
noticed.
And
then you wait about half an hour for the actual time. It takes about half an hour, depending on where you are, obviously, but it's roughly about half an hour, and it's just perfect. And it's just like, wow, it's come up. I can see the white line.
And that's the moment you start praying.
That's the moment you start praying, the moment you stop eating.
Yep. And you pray
until... It's not before that. If you do it before that, it's not... You haven't done it.
Okay.
This is very... A lot of people think this is, whoa, no, it's not like that, I mean, I'm following the ayat. There are hadith about it as well, but the ayat talks about it. Isra 17:78, that mentions that exactly how it's supposed to be done. It actually mentions the white line that you were talking about. So, and it's, the ayat tells you, there are hadith about it as well that explain the same thing. So the problem is the implementation is all wrong.
Yeah, I want to touch base very quickly on a little thing that is kind of, I think, off topic. Well, not really. it's about the sighting of the new moon when you're about to fast. How do you do it?
How do you do it?
Well, like you've got different people saying different things. Diana goes by calendar.
I'd go by the calendar.
You go by the calendar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, the thing with that is everyone's trying to follow what our prophet did in the past time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the only way you could do it was visually.
Okay.
But we're told when to do it. So we're told that when you see the new moon, which is just the beginning of the crescent, that's the beginning of the month.
Okay.
Okay, and that's or the end of the month, you know, the beginning of the next month. And that's how they work out the beginning of Ramadan, the beginning of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our prophet had no other choice except to look at it.
Mm.
Now, there's a lot of groups or a lot of people, Muslims around the world, that say, no, that's the only way to do it. But the problem is it could be cloudy.
Yep, that's true.
It could be that the moon, so the moon is not always above us during the day or at night, particular times. So it may not be above us the point that it's about to do that, but it's in another country and it's happening in another. So what do you do then? Do you wait one more day? We're in a time now where it's actually a global world at the moment. Well, and we know if it's happening in New Zealand, although we don't see it here because it's cloudy or because we're not going to see the moon tonight until a certain time, they have seen it. And that's when you begin.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, because Coburg Mosque does it like that. He goes up, has a look, sees it sometimes he doesn't, goes by other countries that may see it. So if there's countries near us that see it, Malaysia, New Zealand, wherever, that's when we're supposed to start. Or Saudi Arabia, they worst off is when they get that far.
The thing is they mathematically know it even now. So it's mathematically known that this is when you do it. I actually have an app on my phone that shows me you have it? Yeah. So it shows you you can look at it and go, hey, it's about to happen on this day. It tells you. But you can actually fast forward and rewind what it's going to look like every day.
But that app doesn't always necessarily work out with what the Diyanet's calendar says.
No, it does.
I've found that once, not always, but once it was a day.
The problem is it's showing you where you are.
Okay. So that's Turkey we're talking about.
So what I'm saying is that's why I was saying sometimes you may not. So let's imagine tomorrow's the new day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or today's going to be the new day. I don't know how to work it out, but let's say today's going to be the day. But the moon has just set for you.
Okay.
Okay. But when it was setting, it was not actually. It was actually you couldn't see the moon at all because there's actually a point where you can't see the moon at all, and then it becomes the little crescent.
Yep.
But that crescent has just happened when it's passed you by. Okay? It's passed you by. It's in another country. They can see it. But by the time you see it, it's the next 24 hours.
Okay.
For instance. Now, what's happened? When you look at your app, it shows you, it's already happening. Because in Turkey, they've seen it now. But your app is going, hold on, it doesn't make sense. Mine is tomorrow. Because it takes you that long before you see it.
Yep.
It's a very... it's like seeing the sun. We see the sun now, but the other side of the world doesn't see it.
Okay, yeah.
Till it's later on tonight.
Yeah, we've got a lot to go through. You still, you know that. Some really interesting questions. So I think the next one was the curiosity in reading the Quran, moving away from what an imam has to say or a scholar has to say. If we can quickly just touch base on these subjects.
Okay. Look, I was very traditional in like every other person that believed in religion, in Islam. But I think I started to move away a little bit when about the Quran. So we all were taught that you're never allowed to touch the Quran or read it or pick it up if you don't have wudu.
Yeah.
But I remember a time when my brother actually brought a new Quran from overseas. And it was all colourful and, one of those nice ones that, related the colours to the translation as well. So you knew which Arabic word related to the thing. And he was saying, have a look at it. And I said, no, I don't have, don't have wudu. And his first thing was, so you think you need, because he'd started on this track a little bit at that time.
Your brother?
Yeah, my brother.
So how many brothers do you have?
I've got 3 brothers.
And is this the oldest or the youngest?
The oldest one.
Okay.
Yeah. So a while ago, he started on this track a little bit and he knew some things about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, do you think you need wudu? And I said, well, don't I? I was like, and he go, and then that's when I still didn't open it up and look at it, And then I went away and started researching it a little bit.
Okay.
and then found what I tried to find out was why am I actually not touching it? So it's like, okay, great, I'm not allowed to touch it, but why? Where is it? So I started going through Google, YouTube, all these things. Where's the information? Where does it relate to? And then I found the ayat. So I found that an ayat in the Quran of why they say you can't touch the Quran.
What's that?
Well, there's an ayat that says it's in Waqiyah, so it's Surah 56:79. It says none touch except the purified.
Okay.
Okay, so it's saying you don't touch unless you're purified. However, the problem is it's not talking about the Quran as a book. It's talking about Arsh. So there's a place called Arsh. I don't know if you've heard about it. Up in, where the angels are.
Mm.
It's where all the information is held, including where the Quran is.
Okay.
It's all information about everything. So it's saying that only clean people can go there. So the angels can go there, but the jinns can't. The shaitan can't. They're not allowed to go and listen. I don't know if you've ever heard about it. That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about the book that we have in our hands. Get up this. It doesn't even say that anyway. It says none touch it except the purified.
None
That's the
touch
ayat.
the Quran except the
It says
purified.
none touch it except the purified. That's what the ayat is about. That's in English.
Okay.
It says in Turkish, it says, temizler anca dokunabilir, which means, only the clean can touch it.
Mm.
But it's not talking about the book itself. It's talking about the information that's up in heaven, where the angels are.
Mm.
Because it says that the unseen can go there too, so jinns can actually go up there. But they're not allowed to. They try to go and listen. I don't know if you've heard of these. They try to hear the information that's up there. The Quran is up there. It's called Arsh.
Okay.
They try to go up and listen. And saying the only people who can go up there are the clean people. So the angels themselves can only go up there. It's got nothing to do with opening up the Quran, a piece of book. Why would it anyway?
Yeah.
So
what does it say?
Pages.
What does it say about wudu and daily prayers? Do you think there's enough information in there about how to perform your prayer, how to take abdes, take wudu, and
so
ghusl, for example.
There's two ayats that explain all of it in the Quran. One is Ma'idah Surah, number 6, and in Nisa Surah 43, they actually explain how to get abdes, wudu.
What does it explain?
I'll explain just the normal abdes first. So in normal wudu, it says, "O you who believe, when you prepare for prayer, wash your faces and your hands to the elbows, rub your heads and your feet and ankles." Up to the ankles.
Okay.
It's actually really, it doesn't say it properly, but it's actually the ankle bone. It actually mentions the bone of the ankle.
Okay.
And it says, and it goes further. That's actually so that's a normal wudu that you do to get to do prayer. It doesn't mention anything. It says, "Oh, you who believe, when you prepare for prayer."
Yep.
So this is when you get it, when you're going to pray, not when you're going to pick up the Quran.
It only mentions pray.
Pray.
Take your wudu before prayer.
That's it.
Does it say anything about ghusl, like about getting that?
So ghusl, it says if you are in a state of ceremonial impurity, bathe your whole body. So that's ghusl.
Yep.
So when you're impurity. Hopefully we know what that means.
We all know what that means, yeah, of course.
And it says, but if ye, this is Old English, but if ye are ill or on a journey, or one of you cometh from offices of nature, or ye have been in contact with woman, and you find no water, then take yourselves clean, a piece of clean sand or earth, and rub your faces and your hands. So this is talking about abdes.
Okay.
So if you got no water, use some sand or some soil.
Yep.
And also Nisa 43 says, it talks about, "O you who believe, approach not prayers with a mind befogged until you can understand all that ye say, nor in a state of ceremonial impurity." So it's talking about ghusl here. It says, until after washing your whole body. So it's talking about ghusl again.
Yep.
And it also talks about tayammum again in that same surah.
Okay.
Now the thing about abdes, so it's talking about 4 things. 4 farzes of how to get wudu before prayer. Now in Mezhebs, it's actually very different, the numbers. So this is what Allah says in the Quran, 4. Doesn't mention any others. Hanafi Mezheb says 4 as well. So they agree that there's 4, but where there's extra sunnats that are done. Maliki says that there's 7 farz.
Okay.
Shafi says there's 6, and Hanbali says 7. Don't know why. Because farz means Allah said it. A farz is something that Allah has commanded, and this is what it says. There's only 4 there. So I don't know where they're getting the rest of it from.
Well, what's your thoughts on the messhaps?
My thoughts on messhaps.
So, are you part of any, do you call yourself?
As a Turkish person that's grown up in, Australia or even in Turkey,
Yep.
traditionally a Hanafi. Some people are Shafi,
Okay.
but we're all Hanafi.
So majority of the Turkish people are Hanifi. Or Shafi.
Yeah, mostly Hanafi. There are
Yep.
places that are Shafi as well, but I think it's 90% probably Hanafi.
Yep.
But there are Shafi people around. Now the problem is that, I started going through a lot of this early on as well about what messhaps are really. And then when I started to see the differences of them, then there was a problem. Now, we're told that although there are 4 of them, that none of them really contradict each other.
Yeah.
That they're all correct.
Yeah.
It's just, different imams of, it's a road that we're taking. That's what it means. Meshab means a different path.
Okay.
But they reckon that the path all leads to the same place. Now, how can that be when, like, for instance, we just talked about wudu. One's saying it's 4, one's saying it's 7, one's saying it's 6. Doesn't really make sense. But there is an ayat that actually talks about how we shouldn't actually break up into different sects. Like in Enam Surah 159, so it's Surah 6. It says, as for those who divide their religion and break up into sects, thou hast no part in them in the least. So it's talking to our Prophet. It says, you got no part of them. Their affair is with God. He will in the end tell them the truth of all that they did. So Allah is saying you can't break up into sects. There's even another ayat in Ali Imran 103. So this is the 3rd surah.
Yeah.
It says, and hold firmly to the rope of Allah. So this is a very common one.
This is my favourite one.
You've heard this one.
Oh,
yeah, I was going to say, most people know this one. And hold firmly to the rope of Allah altogether and do not become divided. What does that mean? Divided, like.
Yeah. Stick together.
Being in different meshab, if you consider that not divided, I don't know what divided means.
So call yourself a Muslim.
Yeah. Some people actually relate it to this. They say that Sunni and Shia are 2 different groups. But Sunni is the right one, so it doesn't matter. We're in the right one.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's talking about all sects, obviously.
I remember a few times we had a few people ask, what do you believe in? I'm a Sunni. Yeah, but what meshab are you? It comes down to start breaking down which groups you're in. I'll never forget one of these brothers asked me once, when I was much younger, who do you believe in? Like, similar question. And so I told him, I'm a Sunni. I'm a Hanifi. He's like, no. He's like, you're a Muslim. And that really raised that question in my mind, That's true. That's what we are. We're Muslims.
There's an ayat that says that.
Yeah.
So there's an ayat, Naml Surah it's called, number 91. It says, I am commanded to be of the Muslims. Yeah. So you actually be given that name.
Even Moses mentions it in the Quran, I think, where he says that I am a Muslim. He doesn't say he's part of, so there's a lot of examples in there that says we are Muslims, and
there's many.
Exactly.
I've read
don't divide
quite a
yourself.
few, but it's probably more than what I even know of. So, but you, that ayat there talks about, it's telling our Prophet, you're not a part of them. And it's basically saying their affair is with God, so God's going to deal with those people.
Wow.
It's very strong words.
Yeah.
It's very strong. I've explained this to a few people, and they always disregard this for some reason.
And it's so powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so
because this doesn't only cover meshebs. This now covers every group.
Everyone fighting against each other.
Yeah.
It could be the Shiite versus Sunni. It could be the Hanifi versus whatever.
But then then we have all these groups in there.
Yeah.
True. No matter what group it is, if you're a different group, you have a different sort of path and different belief. Well, you're a different sect, aren't you?
Well, did you have any interest in any of these different groups early on? The mosques in the community. Can you give us some examples of a few?
I very early on, I remember looking at a lot of these.
Yeah.
In the early 90s, the late 80s, early 90s, when I was a part of the mosque, we had so many different people with different groups, and they used to always try to invite us, come to this, sohbet.
Yeah.
We're going to get together and talk. Even one of my old imams, from the early days, he still lives around in Broady. He used to try to convince me to come to his group. Kept telling me to come over. Never went. Never went because you know, I never really went to any of the groups. Researched them a lot, but never went into any of them. I always knew that there was something wrong.
Okay.
Never knew what
To
it
be
was.
a part of that
To
group.
be a part of that
Okay.
group. Never knew what it was, but
Mm.
never researched it enough to know that there was something wrong. But I always believed there was something wrong.
I like the part where they build mosques, do projects where they help the poor and all the
Absolutely.
rest of that sort of
Absolutely.
stuff. I
That's
definitely
really good.
agree with you, but there's so many of them that are saying, come here, come there.
We're the right ones, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
No, so
and that builds confusion, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the problem is when you get deep into it, you find that, you know, the philosophies are very different, that they're following a different book or they're following a different, you know, belief.
Mm-hmm.
The beliefs start really changing after a while, you know. They start swaying off the traditional Quran, which is a bit of a worry. But no, never went into any group. While I was in Canberra, there was a few groups over there trying to get me involved. I, you know, met them occasionally, but never really got involved completely.
Can I
Always
ask
slept away.
what sort of groups? We
Uh,
don't have to get into that if you don't want to. But how about here?
some of the controversial ones right now. That's all I'll say.
Okay, the controversial ones. Okay, if we're talking Turkish, we all know, I guess, what that means. But all right, look, let's get into, say, Sufism. I've had a few brothers approach me, and I thought Sufism was one group, but it's not like that, is it? It's so many different ones, because I've got one from one part of the mosque that believes something, and then another one and another one. So, yeah.
So Sufism, that's the English word for it. In Turkish, it's called tasawwuf.
Okay.
I researched this quite a bit at one stage, many years ago. And I started to find out that I actually thought Sufism was one thing, like one separate thing, and that all these other groups were something else.
Okay.
And then I found out that they all stem from there. All of these, a lot of these groups that delve more into the spiritual side of Islam. That's what it is. So tasawwuf is actually a person that's more spiritual than anything else. That's what their interests are. The interest is in actually purifying the soul. That's what tasawwuf is. That's all they're about. Let's purify the soul. They all stem from there. Every single
So their core
group.
beliefs.
One of their core beliefs that they'll always tell you about is tasawwuf is about purifying the soul. Now the problem is how you get to that. So they believe that you need someone to help you purify your soul. A person. So an imam or the sheikh that they call it. A sheikh needs to help you on the right path of purifying your soul. In most circumstances, in a lot of the groups, he actually helps you purify your soul. As in, he helps. Without him, you can't purify your soul. There's a lot of this sort of stuff.
Okay.
But there's some core beliefs that even the people in these groups don't understand what they actually believe in completely. And because I've mentioned some of these to some. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of Sufi people. And when I bring up these topics, they go, no, we don't believe in that. And I said, yes, you do. You might not know about it, but your group believes in this.
Like what?
So there's a few things. The first one's called ledun.
Ledun.
Ledun bilgisi, or ledun information. And what it means is secret information.
Okay.
So secret information. So there's a lot of sheikhs that sometimes evliyas, you remember evliyas, they have this thing called ledun. And what it means is they have secret knowledge.
Let's touch base on Evliyas, just very briefly.
Yeah.
What are they? Who are they? How did it start?
Well, there's an ayat. Actually, I don't have the ayat, but there's an ayat in the Quran that says evliyas are. So evliya means Allah dostu. So it means friends of Allah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all. That's the basic knowledge of it. Friends of Allah.
Okay.
So friends of Allah are people who obey Allah, do what He says, and Allah loves them, accordingly. Now the problem is they use that word evliya and they say this is my special person. That you're not an evliya, that this person is. So they're, whoever the imam is or whoever
So he's above the imam.
He's above the imam, of course.
Okay.
So these people are special. So they've made it a new class. There's no such thing because Allah is actually telling us what an evliya is. He's saying someone that obeys Allah and all the commandments.
Yep.
Now and what evliya means, the word evliya means someone that is friend of Allah. Now, if you're not a friend of Allah, are you an enemy of Allah? Don't understand.
So we're all friends of Allah?
Of course. That's what you should be, shouldn't you? So
True.
the word evliya is for someone that is a friend of Allah. You are, I am. There's two words. So evliya is actually like the plural of veli. Veli means like it's like a singular word. So the same word. So Evliya is like the plural of it. But it means are you a friend of Allah? If you're a friend of Allah, it's someone that you committed to Allah and you're doing what Allah tells you. Unfortunately, Sufism has taken to another level, and they've said that no, that's a special class of people that Allah has appointed, literally, because they say Allah has given them the right to have all these special gifts of some sort, and they have miracles, and they have this thing called ledun, which is this secret knowledge.
Yeah.
This secret knowledge allows them to be able to answer any question. Apparently, that doesn't have to be in the Quran or Hadith or anything like that. They have you ask them something, they'll know something about it.
Yeah,
that's what it is. And they say that this apparently came from our Prophet and was taught to, I think, Hazrat Umar, I think, but not the rest. Just taught to him, apparently, and he passed it down. As it's a myth. I mean,
yeah.
Most Sufis don't even know about this, but this is what they talk about. So this is the information they have, and so Allah apparently gives them the power to be able to answer any question that's asked to them because they have this secret knowledge.
And they have powers, and they have
powers. Yep.
Yeah.
So
they can perform miracles.
They can perform miracles. They do all the time, apparently. They can
we'll
walk on water.
We'll talk a little bit about miracles.
They can walk on water. You've heard of things like that.
Yeah.
Walk on water, fly.
Yeah, teleport and stuff. But we're going to talk about that in a minute. Let's get back to so their core beliefs.
Their core beliefs, yeah. So that's one of them. Ledun is one of them. There is another one called Rabita. So it's a practice that they do when they pray. They imagine their sheikh or their evliya, and they basically pray. They're not praying to him, but they're putting him in between.
Okay.
So they're praying to Allah, but they're using their sheikh in between. So they imagine him. So they imagine him in his head, and when they're praying to their sheikh or their evliya in the hope that he's going to then send it to Allah. Now, this is shirk, unfortunately, because you can't put anything in between Allah.
So shirk, for those people that don't know what it means.
Yeah, they don't understand what it means, obviously.
No, but shirk, for the viewers that don't understand what it means, if you...
Intercession, it's called,
Yeah, you've got to believe in the oneness of God, so you can't believe that he's got a son or a daughter.
That's right. And also, so in Fatiha Surah, the first surah that we read every time, 5 times a day, he says, I only ask for help from you, Allah. Okay? Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. So, now, you're asking for help only from Allah, but then if you're a part of Tasawwuf or Sufism, you do this thing called Rabita. It's like, I only ask from you for help. But hold on, when I pray, I've got to think of my sheikh, and then he's going to send my prayers to you. That's what shirk is, unfortunately. Not all of them know this. None of them will practice this. But it is a core belief of Tasawwuf. I've had conversations with people that told me that they said, are you crazy? Why would I do that? That's shirk. I wouldn't even, like he's telling me it's shirk. I wouldn't do that. And then when I went into their group's website, it had full details of how to do this practice. And when I showed him, he didn't say anything after that. But so they're not all taught everything, but their core beliefs are this. There is another really core belief, a very scary one. It's something called Wahdat al-Wujud.
English. Let's get that translation in English.
The translation, I don't know what the translation is, but what it means is Wahdat al-Wujud. So Wujud means body.
Body, yeah.
So Wahdat al-Wujud means that so what they believe in is that, so when we say La ilaha illallah. So La ilaha illallah, the Arabic word means no, there is only one ilah, one God, and that's Allah.
That's Allah, yeah.
Okay. What they believe is they say La, so no, there's only one, there's only God, and his name's Allah. They say there's nothing but Allah. So they say everything is Allah. So we are a part of Allah. So this is a core belief.
This is a core belief
Sufism.
Of majority of the Sufis.
This is a core belief of Sufism. Now, whether they know what it means or not is another thing. That's what I say. Like, it doesn't mean when someone says there is Sufism, they might go against, no, I don't believe in that. But it's their belief. It's just that they may not have gone to that level and been taught that yet.
Okay.
But it is a part of Sufism belief, 100%. Every Sufi must believe in this, but they don't all know it. There might be people watching this and go, no, I don't believe in that. Well, you haven't been taught that yet. Go ask your sheikh. Ask him, what's this Wahdat al-Wujud business? And they'll explain it to you. So it's a core belief. So they believe that everything that exists is Allah. In other words, we're a piece of Him. And there's an ayat that talks about this. It's saying that it's a bad thing in Zuhruf 15. It says, but they have attributed to Him from His servants a portion. Indeed, man is clearly ungrateful. In other words, saying I've attributed, like trying to say that I've attributed my body as a part of Allah. In Turkish, it makes more sense to me when I read it.
Yep.
But you've attributed parts of you, portions to His servants. But it's, so it's a very scary thing.
Do they all believe in teleportation? Because this is something that I've come across speaking to a few of them.
It is.
They've got teleportation, they talk to the dead, they see the angels. Where did it all come from?
So this teleportation, tayyi mekan, they call it. That's the word that they use.
Like it's an actual teleport. There's something in the wall.
No. So what it is, what they believe. So you've heard of astral traveling?
Not really, no.
So astral traveling is this new age kind of thing that a lot of people talk about. Hindus do it a lot. So Hinduism, Buddhism is a big. This is where it's all come from. Yep. This belief. So they believe that they could just sit where they are, and their soul can move to another place. Okay. This is taking it a bit further because they say they can also physically go there. So it's not like I don't know how they do it because I don't think anyone's seen this happen. But they believe that the awliyas, so the big
the higher up guys.
Yeah. They from time to time they are able to teleport somewhere, and it's only between aksham and between at night only. Okay. They can do this, but they've been seen in other places. So they've been seen at Kaaba, apparently. They've been seen in wars. They regularly apparently go and fight wars apparently like this.
So they teleport. So Allah Dostları, again, the ones that are God's
appointed people,
special
loved people. Yeah.
Loved people by God.
By God.
Can teleport, and they've got a certain time that they're allowed to do that.
Yeah, when I investigated further, I found that it only happens at nights, so between Isha prayer.
But apart from it being at nights, them being at war zones.
Yeah. Apparently they go fight heaps of times, fight wars and things like that.
Who says this?
Their own people, their own groups to have these conversations all the time.
Do they have books on this, like on teleportation?
I don't know if they actually write these things. They talk about it all the time. I've found a lot of material about it.
Yep.
I've found a lot of material. So they do write about it. Okay. I don't know what books they have that explain these things in detail. Well, the
books that I've read, the things that I see in documentaries in English is usually, they're not even Muslims that are writing it. They're showing the side of Sufism where it's based on music. It's,
they always show the spiritual side.
Side and relaxing. Yeah. They've got Mevlana that they look up to a lot with quotes and stuff like that.
That's right. He's the most famous one that they because Mevlana has more followings that are not Muslim now. Yeah. It's very interesting. So it's become optional to be Muslim to follow Mevlana because they believe he's a prophet. Like in the US, there's a big following. They follow him. It's very odd, isn't it? He's supposed to be a Muslim leader, yet it's optional to be Muslim to follow him because they believe he's a prophet. Wow. There's a big following of Mevlana himself. It's a big worry because then it's like, what was he really teaching then? We don't have people that are non-Muslims that follow our Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam.
They quote him all the time. Yeah. Even the media guys or someone on TV would just...
How many non-Muslims quote our Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam?
Exactly, none.
You don't. You can't.
Very rare.
But they wouldn't follow him. Yep. They don't say he's our Prophet. There are people that are saying he's our Prophet. Mevlana is our Prophet. Why? So what is he writing in his book? I've read quite a bit about his book. But why?
How about the other stuff? So them seeing angels, talking to angels, or talking to the dead.
Yep, they believe they talk to the dead, not just the awliyas themselves.
So anyone.
I've heard them many times say that any one on the right path that's spiritually quite good can speak to dead, or the dead just come out of nowhere and talk to them, or the angels appear to them all the time
in their sleep, or
both, I think.
Okay.
But there's a lot about this. They talk about this quite a lot. This is why they quite often go to a lot of tombs of past awliyas as well. And pray
places
there.
Like Konya, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
They're all around Turkey anyway.
Yep.
They like to pray there. They're not praying to them, obviously. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they're praying, hoping that their prayers will be sent to Allah is a form of shirk.
Through these people that have died?
Absolutely, yeah. Through the people, because they believe they're not dead.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, in Sufism, once an Evliya has passed on, they believe he has more powers than when he was alive.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it?
That is.
Yeah. So he has more powers. So he's actually able to do more when he's dead than when he was alive.
Yeah.
He's able to travel everywhere. So one of the common sayings, like they call him Qawsul Azam, which is Abdul Qadir Gailani.
Abdul Qadir Gailani.
A lot of the different sects of Sufism, they ask for help from him.
When you say a lot of different, how many?
That ask for help from him.
Well,
I know of
sects.
three.
How many different sects do you think there is in Sufism?
I think I at least counted about 30 of them once, and I don't think I've counted all of them.
Okay.
That's my brief.
That's your number, briefly. Okay.
My brief number, as in the ones that I sort of looked at to find out whether they believed in the same sort of thing.
Okay.
Now, I think there's a lot more. Quite sure there is, you know.
So going back to Gailani.
Yeah, so there's a common thing. They like to, they ask for, his title is Qaws Azam. This is what, so they have different names in Sufism where they have different titles for these people. They say that you can ask for help from him. Mm-hmm. So you can actually pray to Qaws, you know, and basically say, I need help now. I'm about to fall in the ditch, or I'm on a plane, I'm about to fall down. Help
so they
me.
go directly to him before Allah.
Absolutely. And the excuse they'll always give you is, no, we're asking from Allah. But because he was one of Allah's favorite people, we're asking, it's like saying, you know, like say I don't know you, but I know your dad, for instance. And it's like, I'll ask your dad to ask you, for instance. You know
While he's dead.
Hmm?
While he's dead or?
Dead or alive, doesn't matter.
Wow. Okay. Well, instead of going to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which was the most liked of all men.
Well, they see the Prophet all the time too. So
they see him in their dreams?
Oh, in real life.
Okay.
In real life, in dreams. I've heard this many times.
How in real life?
They'll just ask for him.
So they'll ask for him and he'll appear?
Yeah, they say this.
Okay.
Sometimes he'll appear on his own. Every group does this. Every group. And you hear it. They openly talk about it. Every group.
Yeah, you had a post on social media. I guess it got a lot of different people commenting on it about the Mevlana, saying that they're the children of God.
Oh, yeah.
Elaborate a little bit about that.
So Mevlana, in his book, Mesnevi, which is the most famous book that he has, he actually says that Evliyas are the children of God. And in the post, I actually mentioned where it was from, and then I mentioned where in the Quran it actually disputes this. The Quran, you know, there's actually quite a few. I think there's 7 verses that talk about this over and over again. And like one of them, it says, they say, God hath begotten the Son. Glory be to him. He is self-sufficient. He's all things in the heavens, and no warrant have you for this. Say ye about God what ye know not. Okay? But there's many. So there's Yunus 68, verse, you know, it just goes on. But I mean, you don't have to read the Quran ayats to actually know that this is wrong. Yep. The post that I had actually said what it was all about was that it's talking about how we like to slander Christians for saying that Jesus is, the Son of God, don't we? Yeah. But here is a Mevlana, which we're saying is one of our, big Muslims, our Evliya. He says that Evliyas, which is himself as well, are the children of God. But it seems to be okay.
Do you think that is shirk?
Of course, yeah. I mean, if Allah is telling you not to say it, it doesn't think like it's saying. Yeah, in Baqarah 116, it actually says that. It says, you can't say that. There's about 7 verses that talk about this. You cannot say that, you're the child. Why would you even say, you would never sit here and go, you know what, we're all children of God. I'm the son of God. Why would you say that? Even as a joke. So when I had this conversation at this post, it was the answer that I started getting was, that's a metaphorical.
What sort of metaphorical though? Like, for example, I think Moses mentions somewhere in the Bible, I don't think it's in the Quran. I definitely don't think it's in the Quran. In the Bible, he mentions we are the sons of God. So I think what Jesus was saying and what Moses and a few other prophets that are in the Bible they all say, Adam, for example, says it as well, I'm the son of God. The Christians believe in that. So it's a little bit tricky when they obviously say that Jesus was the son of God, but hold on, Moses was also the son of God in your Bibles. Yeah. Adam was also the son of God.
I think their translations are all wrong. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. So the Quran doesn't mention that. We don't say in the Quran that we are the sons of gods. Yeah. So for them to get that type of title, it's coming from the Bible more than
absolutely. But for someone to protect it, like the Sufis will protect this, and they have. In some of the posts that I was writing.
How do they protect it?
They're protecting it, saying, oh, no, hold on, it's a metaphorical term. Of course he's not the son of God. But he just said that. I said, no, it's metaphorical. So when have you metaphorically said that you're the son of God?
Does he elaborate on that in the book where he's talking about it
No, he doesn't, no. But I mean, why would you say that? Like, you wouldn't say it as a joke. When Allah has, in 7 or 8 ayats, he's actually telling you not to ever say something like this. Why would anyone, especially someone supposed to be that high of a religious level, even imply something like that? It's not like someone that doesn't understand religion that well and said, I think we're all sons of gods or something. No, this is supposed to be someone that you're looking up to. There's written books about religion that you're saying is a beloved, person of Allah. The Allah Dostul, which is the friend of Allah. He's chosen by Allah because they think they're all chosen. How do they know they're chosen is another thing.
And they somehow, I think my understanding of it is that you don't have enough education or you don't have enough knowledge to understand that unless you are an Evliya or you are someone really high up and that kind of...
You'll get that answer a lot.
Yeah, I've got that answer a lot. And that question, like that put a question mark in my head saying, well, then I just have to follow. Yeah. I shouldn't ask any questions right now. I should just be part of this and see where it leads to.
Yeah, that happens quite often. So the answer you'll eventually get is, look, we know it doesn't make sense, but we're not at their level. We don't know what they were talking about. So, well, that's not a good excuse.
Yeah, I think I'm going to enjoy, I definitely would love to have someone very knowledgeable about Sufism that actually practices it on the show as well. Someone, to kind of get their take to see what
someone that probably knows a lot more about it. I mean, I've spoken to some people that didn't really understand their own beliefs either,
Yeah, not those type of people. Someone the ones that have really spent years and years.
Yeah, someone who can reference something to you and say, this is what we really believe in.
Definitely.
I'd like to see what they say about it.
Yeah, well, both of us, since neither one of us have come across anyone like that, hopefully, inshallah, after this show, we would have some people putting their hands up. I guess, is there anything else you want to mention on this topic?
Nothing really much, no.
Yeah. I think one last question before we end this episode. We have been speaking for a while now, is about, say, a Hafiz. One who can read the Quran off by heart. Do you consider it a blessing? If you knew the Quran off by heart, what's more important, do you think, knowing the Quran off by heart or understanding it? So growing up, we've looked up to a lot of people, even me as a child, in secondary school, he's a Hafiz.
Yeah.
I never really understood what that meant. I understood that it meant he can read verse by verse off by heart, which is an amazing thing.
Amazing thing, yeah.
Like, wow, who wouldn't want to do that? We had one guy, his name was Yusuf, growing up going to school at Milligorish. Yep. I went there earlier days before I went to Upfield, and he was probably about 12 or 13, and he knew how to read it off by heart. 12
or 13.
12 so to when did he 13 start? Years old. I think he started around 10. Yeah, his dad, I remember the dad was very strict though.
Apparently it's a lot easier when you're younger because you don't have any other distractions.
True.
It happens a lot. I mean, if we were to try to do it now, don't know how long it's going to take. 10 years?
Yeah.
Not even sure.
It's true because we've got work, we've got children, you've got grandchildren, for example.
No, I don't have grandchildren.
You don't have grandchildren?
Not yet.
One
married and no grandchildren.
Okay, inshallah soon.
Busy. Well, yeah, we're all working away at the moment. So.
Exactly. So work takes us, doing a lot of other things obviously take us away from being able to kind of learn it off by heart. But inshallah it'll be something that we can do in the future.
Yeah, look, I think being a Hafiz is an excellent thing to do, but I think your main aim of being a Hafiz is to actually understand it, to learn Arabic. If you don't have that at the end, if that's not your aim, it's like, I just want to become a Hafiz and learn the Arabic, and just memorize it. That doesn't do anything. You just learn. It's like me just picking up learning Indonesian, how to read it, and memorize a book. What have I done?
Exactly. You haven't taken that knowledge away.
No, you haven't taken anything away. But if it's like I'm going to become a hafiz and, maybe not during because it's very hard during, but your next phase is, okay, I'm now a hafiz. I've spent 4 years on this. I memorize it. Now I go take Arabic lessons and I learn Arabic. And you know what? What better? Imagine learning Arabic after you've memorized it and you know what you're reading.
Wow, it's all in the brain.
All in the brain. Now, as long as it's that. Unfortunately, not everyone does that.
Yep.
Like in Turkey, we have every year, I think, like tens of thousands of people that become hafizes. They don't learn Arabic ever. There was a survey done, I remember, I think going back 5 or 6 years ago, I saw.
Yep.
They did a survey of all the people in Turkey that were imams and hafizes as well. And they asked them how many times they'd read the Quran in their own language, like to understand it. It was less than 1%.
Wow.
Ever, like reading it once at least.
So like reading the Quran but not understanding anything you're reading.
Yeah. So the question was, did you ever read it in a language you understand? So whether it's, if they knew Arabic and they understood in Arabic, okay, great.
Yep.
So that was one thing. Or in Turkish, because they don't know Arabic, they're asking every imam. They said less than 1% ever read it once even, from beginning to end.
Because Mustafa, growing up here in Australia, here in Melbourne, you obviously a generation before mine. Like when we were getting taught the Quran, it was Arabic.
It was Arabic,
and that's it.
Were you ever told, for instance, the meaning of any of the surahs when you were learning them?
No, not really.
No, I wasn't either.
Never. They were mentioned, like you said, through some of these imams that would come up and talk to us about them. But
we were never taught.
And they wouldn't really define where it's coming from, which part of the Quran it is. They wouldn't elaborate on it.
Did you ever know? Like, it was a shock to me to find out in my late 40s that wudu was even in the Quran.
Wow. Yeah, I never knew that.
No one ever told me. And you know what? It's very funny because whoever I talked to, later on I had these conversations, then they'll be like, oh, hold on, how can you just read the Quran? It doesn't even tell you how to get wudu. And I said, well, here it is. And I'll be like, what?
I started learning all these through Ahmed Didat, through Dr. Naik, when they started mentioning they start mentioning it from the Quran.
Mentioning Quran. So the Quran says this, the Quran says that.
Like, whoa, I'm like, man, that's crazy, because I can now grab the Quran
and read
in my translation, look at what they're talking about, it's word for word. They memorized. Apparently, they're not hafizes either. Well, I know that Dr. Naik is, and he says he knows 25% of the Quran off by heart. So when he references it to a Christian or to a non-Muslim, it's teaching me something as well. Yeah, and I didn't get taught that when I was younger.
There's a really important ayat of the Quran. It's called Zuhruf. It's Surah 43, number 44. It says the Quran. Well, in brackets says the Quran, but this Quran indeed is the message for thee and for your people, and soon you shall be brought to account. So what it's saying is you're going to be brought to account from this Quran. You're going to be judged on the Quran.
Wow.
So not from the Hadith, not from your Sufi's book, anything like that. Nothing like that at all. From this book.
Read the Quran.
Read the Quran. So if you don't understand what's in the Quran, you're going to be judged on this.
Yeah.
Allah's not going to ask you which hadith that you followed. It's going to ask you, did you do what it said there?
Mustafa, last question.
Yep.
With all these type of thoughts, the way you've obviously now moved away from certain groups, have you got a lot of criticism for it? Like, do people, kind of understand what you're saying, or do they quickly jump to attack?
They quickly jump to attack. Yeah, the first thing I'm always labelled as when you talk is like, oh, you're a hadith rejecter. I said, no, actually read hadith.
Yep.
Not a rejecter. I'm a rejecter of false hadith. I'm a rejecter of a hadith that puts words into our Prophet's mouth when he hasn't said it.
Yep.
To find Sahih hadith that don't even agree with each other is an incredible thing. But I think people need to understand that the Quran is the source of information. The Quran is what our Prophet actually brought to us. The Quran is what Allah gave to him, and that's what he showed us. That's what he taught to us. Now, the hadith that we have are third-hand information, but they're important. What is it? The guy saw our prophet say this. He ate with his right hand. He ate with his left hand. He did this. This is what everyone's great. It's good information. It's historical information. It's not the source of Islam. That's the problem. It's not the source. A source means what came from Allah. Now, if you're saying that's the secondary source, then did that come from Allah?
Yeah,
I think that's the problem. And I always get labels that you're a hadith rejecter. So I'm not a rejector. Like, you're very quick to jump the gun here. I've had this from people that have never read a hadith in their life, probably. And I've read many. Can't say I've read all of it. There's a lot of it, but there's a lot of backlash with this.
Oh, I guess there would be. I mean, that's what got my interest with getting you on the show. I wanted to hear a different perspective because we hear the same things from mosques all the time, and then you're just so confused. The Sufism,
which one do you go with?
Some groups, some mosques, and exactly. So it's important to kind of be open-minded and see it from every side. And I love that. So I like to hear it, from you and others. So look, on that note, I'd like to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I guess I want to thank all my viewers for also jumping on board and watching. I would ask them, please also like the Aydin Show on Facebook and go on YouTube and subscribe to our show. Assalamu alaikum. May peace and blessings be upon you.
Thanks.